Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. I'm speaking to you from my backyard. It's a beautiful day in Halifax, and it's super sunny, which is not my favorite. But the other reason why I'm not sitting in one of those delightful chairs out there is that the ants have discovered me, and we have a lot of ants in this backyard. So I'm just going to give you a tour from the safety of my steps where the ants haven't figured it out. So that's behind where those two pink chairs are is a grassy area that we're building up. It's replacing a deck, and so eventually that will be like a seating, eating area. And we come around, that's the clothesline, and the bird bath close to the house, which is always fun to watch, and my big left boob. Well, thanks for your patience for that little jostly tour. I hope that it was worth it. This is my rocking chair on the back deck, and as I say, the ants haven't discovered it here. And it's in the shade till about almost noon, so it's really nice for a morning coffee, and sometimes if I time it right, I can come out and have my sandwich out here as well. And then the way this wall back here, just on the other side of it, there's a 3-story house, and so we don't get a whole lot of sunlight from that side, so sort of just a very brief moment of sunshine on this back porch, so I quite love it. Cat likes it too. She's getting older, she's not that much interested in the backyard. She likes to go out, have a nibble of grass, come inside, barf, go back out, have some more grass, then come in, have some breakfast, and then sleep the morning away. That's her retirement plan. Okay, so today I am bringing to you Ayesha at Last, and it is by Uzma Jalaludin, and I probably pronounced that wrong, I apologize. This is a Canadian author. She's a young author, and I believe, is this her debut? I'm not sure, but if it isn't a debut, it's just, either way, it's a really fun novel. I quite enjoyed it. And as you can see from the cover, we are following Ayesha, who is a young Muslim woman. And the sort of structural plot is around a Jane Austen story. Now, I don't know my Jane Austens very well. I don't know which one she is, what's that word, reinterpreting. I kind of wondered whether we weren't seeing a little bit of some Shakespeare plots in there, because there is a grandfather who was an English literature professor who quotes Shakespeare quite often, pulls out different quotes from sonnets and plays and so forth that he feels are appropriate to the situation. So at a certain point I just thought, are we seeing oh no, it just went straight out of my head, the one where they fake their identities. Well, all right, what's this plot about? Ayesha is in her 20s, and she's completed her teaching degree, and she's starting to teach as a substitute teacher at local high school. And she is at heart a poet. She's not loving the teaching. She thought this might be a good way to make a living in order to pay her uncle back, because when Ayesha was a young girl, she and her mother and does she have a sibling? She has a sibling. Yes, of course. Dad was killed in some unspoken scenario that happened back in the Middle East, and so nobody's really sure what happened with Dad, but what ended up happening, I shouldn't say the Middle East, in India. So Uncle came in, rescued them, brought them to Canada, got them set up. Mom ended up having to work as a nurse. She's taking on a million shifts to try and keep everything together, because she also brings her parents, Grandpa and Grandma, back to Canada. So there is a family debt, in a sense, to the uncle. And the uncle has several daughters, and this is where sort of the Jane Austen-y piece comes in, where there are 4 daughters, and one of them is just a flibberty-gibbet. She's immature, she's about 18, and she is, what would you say, she's just, it's not that she's out of control, it's that she hasn't any direction. She's completely footloose and impulsive. So they're trying to settle her down into a marriage, and I don't know how they think that's going to work with that kind of a personality that's been spoiled all their life, that they, how they're going to effectively become what would you say, a communicating partner. I have my doubts about that. But that's not the plot. That's the sideline. Mafsa is not interested in the end goal of a husband. What she's interested in are the dresses and the engagement parties and going through the interviewing process of a potential groom. And it's a little bit like counting coup. The more they're not even really proposals, they're pre-proposals. The more she can get, the higher up she goes in the rankings amongst her friends. So it's like getting likes on your TikTok or your Instagram or what have you. So she's really not getting the spirit of the task that's before her. And so she talks her cousin Ayesha into going to do a planning event at the local mosque. They're going to try and do a sort of a youth conference for young Muslim, I guess youth, you would say. And Mafsa is not interested in actually doing this. She wants to create a planning company, but she has no interest in anything except the events themselves. So she cons Ayesha into representing herself, and Ayesha doesn't do this intentionally, but when she gets there, she's mistaken for Mafsa. So she's got Mafsa's name, but not she doesn't try to imitate Mafsa. She is herself, and as a result, she's a fairly competent woman. She's got all the skill sets needed to be an effective teacher. So she's doing good work with this conference, and she's impressing Khalid. And Khalid is a fairly traditional Muslim man. He's graduated, he's been at a very secure job for the last 5 years. He's in e-commerce, and he has like a mom you wouldn't wish on a nest of rats. She's awful. He is passively accepting what's going on. There had been some kind of bizarre situation that happened with his older sister, and he was too young to really understand what was going on, and this older sister's been whisked back to India and into an arranged marriage, and they don't really, as far as the mother is concerned, this daughter is dead to her. So he's become very passive in his relationship with his mom, but his story is about getting beyond and past mom. Ayesha's story is that she doesn't really want to be a teacher. She wants to be a poet. She's angry about having to create this front for Mafsa and rescue her continually, and at the same time duck and dodge any potential grooms of her own, because she gets Mafsa's leftovers. Whoever the matchmaker is go, oh well, if Mafsa doesn't like your son, then I've got another girl for you, and they give him Ayesha's number. So she's kind of dodging between all these leftovers. It's a comical story. It's also a serious story in the sense that Khalid, who is not fully developed in his sense of himself, he's got some interesting ideas about who he is and what he is, and they're not wrong. They're just not broad. They're fairly narrow. So he sees himself as a very devout Muslim man, and that's true. And he sees that the way he dresses himself and his beard and so forth are outward expressions of who he feels that he is inwardly, and that's true too. But what he's unable to see is that there's more than one way to be devout, and there's more than one way to outwardly express your faith. And so he has this very narrow lifestyle and this very narrow friend range, and he has absolutely no experience with women. I mean, he doesn't even really have experience with his mom, because he's just passively sits there and let her does her shtick, and so he doesn't even really know how to relate with that. So he has a lot of growing up to do. And what I liked about this with respect to Khalid is that there's pressure from a couple of other Muslim fellas to ditch the beard and the cap and it's like a tunic for men that is worn as part of the faith path, and but he resists that, and I respect that, and I think he's on the right track. I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with having an outward expression of your faith, But I also believe that there needs to be room for, what's the word? Sometimes societal expectations are such that if you yourself don't feel comfortable changing your wardrobe, fair enough, but not to judge others who aren't feeling that. So that's kind of Khalid's journey. Well, Ayesha, who I've hardly talked about, is sort of navigating between Khalid and Mafsa and her uncle and her wonderful grandfather who keeps quoting Shakespeare at her. And also just this torment about, can I teach? Do I want to teach? Is there any way I can be a poet? My poetry is just being lost in this family, lost in this job. There's like, she is not able to do the pieces of self-expression that she needs to do the way Khalid does and the way Mafsa does. I mean, Mafsa's outward expression of her faith and everything is completely superficial, and Mafsa's comfortable with that. Ayesha is a much deeper thinker, and she's definitely connected to her faith, and she has the poetry, I think, is part of what she uses as her communication to the world about her place in the world as a Muslim woman and also as an immigrant. So she's not able to express that at all. How are you going to pull all those three parts together? Well, that's where Jane Austen's kind of comes together, and a little bit of Shakespeare. And that's where I'm going to leave it in terms of plot description, because the plot really centers around this conference piece and Mafsa's silliness and Khalid's stubbornness, and so that's where the Jane Austen piece comes in. Grandpa adds in an element that's unlike Jane Bennet's dad, in that, yes, Jane Bennet's dad was a literary, what's that word? I can't think. He has very knowledgeable about literature and sort of the outward world through his readings and so forth, and that's true of Grandpa. But Grandpa also has a lot of world experience and has seen a lot of things. He's much more worldly than Mr. Bennet, and so he offers a different kind of advice than Mr. Bennet did to Jane. The other thing that I really liked that what Grandpa did was he would offer his observations, but not as advice, mostly as observations, and then kind of wait for people's aha moments, which he had incredible patience around this. Ayesha is really a delightful character. She really, I was proud of her through the whole thing. She really had personal integrity, and she really could recognize when she was goofing it up. I think that's what I liked about her. I mean, with the Jane Bennet characters and some of the other characters, and maybe it's a language presentation because of the the different time periods, but I could understand Ayesha's thinking a lot better than I could Jane Bennet's or any of the others. I was never convinced that Darcy and Jane really amended their positions. I think they maybe thought they were compromising, but whenever I've read those or seen the movie, I always think, yeah, what's going to happen after the wedding? I think they're both still very stubborn, very opinionated people. I'm not sure that they've really softened, but I think with Ayesha we see a softening in terms of her. She doesn't give up on herself and what she needs, but I think she softens in her expectations of people around her, and I think that allows her to be a more fully rich kind of observer. I think that now we don't see her poetry at the end of the book particularly, but I do think that her poetry will be the richer for having opened her eyes to the possibility that people's faults and weaknesses and so on are part of accepting them, part of loving them. And so, yeah, I really liked Ayesha. I think this is a great book. I really recommend it. I think anybody who's doing the Jane Austen month would really enjoy it. And here's a trick, I've mentioned it before in a previous video, is large print. If you can't get the book to, if you're number 63 on the regular print, then go be number 15 on the large print. Maybe that means you're taking the large print away from someone who's got vision problems. I don't know. You'll have to figure out that piece of morality on your own. So I recommend it. I was hoping that this would be a 4 out of 5 book, and it totally is. Totally a 4 out of 5. That's it for me. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true. And I think I just heard Steve's car door close. He must be back from the camp. I'm going to go see what he's up to. Bye-bye for now.